everybody. I'm sorry that we've come in a bit late. We had a little technology problem there. Anyway, welcome indeed to Knitter Matters. This is season 2, episode 8, and I'm thrilled that you're joining me. Whether you're a regular viewer or you're new to Knitter Matters, welcome indeed. And of course, if you're watching live or the replay later, that's wonderful. Thank you very much for taking the time to join me. I'm Cheryl Lampard. I'm an image consultant. My company is Style Matters International. And two of the great passions throughout my life have been sewing and knitting. Sorry, I'm just helping the cameraman here. Get this on the little stand. Anyway, my passions have been sewing and knitting throughout my life. And knitting in particular is my therapy, it's my relaxation. I know it is for many of you too. I also used to be the proud owner of a yarn store in Brighton, and one of the great joys of that is being able to teach people how to knit, and it's a real joy to be doing that all these years later, albeit via a different platform. And it is lovely to be back with you again this week, and the eagle-eyed amongst you will notice that I'm not in my usual studio. I'm actually still in the beautiful town of Warwick, New York, and it really is lovely here. It's a bit colder than Florida, but it's wonderful and I'm enjoying it very much. And I also have my cameraman back this week, my camera operator, so yay, that's wonderful. Although he is demanding an increase in pay, so I'm not so happy about that. Anyway, the good thing about having him back is that I'm not going to make you dizzy anymore when I move the camera and try and reposition it, so that's a good thing. The not so good thing is that I might not be able to see your names as they pop up, although I will try and say hello to you, but forgive me if I miss you. But as always, do put any questions in the comments thread below. If I can't answer it as we go along, I will answer it as soon as possible afterwards. And I really do welcome your feedback and suggestions. And in fact, today's topic, the I Called Join, is actually a viewer suggestion. Kimberly Webber. Thank you, Kimberly, very much for suggesting this. And I'm very happy to demonstrate it because it's a wonderful technique and it gives a different and interesting finish to when you're sewing squares together in particular, or straight edges. So I will now ask if the camera can move to the table. And somebody, Kathy, has joined. Kathy and Maureen, thank you so much. And Trudy, thanks so much for joining. Now, in season 1, episode 23, it was all about the I chord, all about I chords. And so if you want to know more about I chords, how it got the name, do go to episode 23 on our first season. And you can find it under the videos on the Knitter Matters Facebook page or our playlist on YouTube. So that would be season 1, episode 23. But just to recap, this is an I chord. It's essentially a seamless tube. And it's knitted on double point needles. There's no seam, you just knit it on double point needles. And let me just show you how to do that again, because the technique is what we're going to be using with our join. So you can have 3 stitches is kind of normal for this size, depends what thickness of yarn you're using. We don't go much beyond, I think the biggest I chord I've probably seen is 7 stitches, although somebody else is going to tell me that they've done bigger than that. But much bigger than that becomes sort of circular knitting anyway. And Barbara's watching too, thank you so much. Right, so what we do, I've already started this just to give you the idea, but you do it on DPNs, double points, because you need to slide this up and down. You don't want anything that's going to impede the needle because you need to be able to get to both ends. So what we do with an I chord, there's no purling, it's just knitting. We knit the 3 stitches. Now normally, when it's at this point, when you've got to the end of your needle, you would turn it around. Well, we're not going to do that. What we do is slide it to the tip of the needle again, and the working yarn is at the back, and you keep it there. And what you do, you give that a little pull, and you knit and you knit and you knit. Okay, and each time you slide it back up, because this is what closes that gap at the back. Okay, so we knit, we knit, we knit. And that's really all an I-cord is. So what you have to remember is essentially your just knit, slide and pull. Give it that little pull, tightens it up so you get this seamless sort of join, okay? So that's what we do with an I-cord. And now let me show you how to do the I-cord join. Let me talk about that first. So this is an I-cord join. I've done it in the same colour as my knitting here, and it's particularly good for blankets and afghans, anything like that. You do need to do it on straight sides or straight edges, but you can do it on a cast on edge or the side of something. But the beauty of this is that you get a real sort of feature of a join. And you can do it in a contrast colour, which I will be doing in a minute to show you how to do it. And it looks intentional, it looks like it's meant to be there. And another bonus is that you don't have to worry if your sewing is a little off in terms of sewing up seams. Lots of people hate sewing up seams, I know that, especially if they're on a blanket and they're flat. You know, a lot of you don't like mattress seams, or you do it vertically, but then you don't really like doing it horizontally. But this way, you don't have to worry about that. You're knitting the join, and I think it's wonderful. Now, this piece, forgive me, I haven't had an opportunity to block this, and it would benefit from a bit of that, but I think you can see quite clearly how this join looks. And as with a lot of things in knitting, there's more than one way to do an I-cord join. I particularly like this way, and I'm going to show you how we do it. And I'm going to show you, and I'm going to show you again, because it's one of those things that the more times you do it, the better it is. So I just started here with 2 squares. They're exactly the same size in terms of amount of stitches and the amount of rows that I've done. So I'm going to start, you want them face up, and then I'm going to actually cast on 3 stitches, and I'm going to use the, what do I call it? Forgotten what I call it, golly. Backward cast on, yes, golly. So loop it round the thumb, and I just want 2 more stitches, okay? 2 more stitches. So that's all I'm doing. You can use another cast on if you want, but this isn't so lumpy. So I've got my slip knot and then my 2 cast on stitches. So what I want to do now, it's important to keep the working yarn at the back. It's easier when you're doing another colour, but if it's the same colour, you'll end up using the tail of your yarn, and then you'll run out, and that'll be a nightmare. But if you keep this at the back, it's not going to interfere. So what I'm going to do now is I look for I'm going to be going up the middle here. So the first thing I do, and it is a bit fiddly to start with, so just bear with me on this one. So I'm going to go with the bottom left of my right-hand square. And what I'm ideally looking for is these V's on the edge of my knitting. Now, if you've just done stockinette stitch, you're going to get those easily. If you don't have that, like we just have reverse stocking stitch here or garter stitch here, you just have to go in where you can. So I'm just going to start off here, and I'm going front to back, and I'm going to pick up a stitch. As I say, it's fiddly to start off with, but once you get there, so I'm going to pick up a stitch. I've got my 3 cast on stitches in my left hand, and I'm going to use this needle, and this is where I've got to fiddle about a bit to start off with. I'm going to get that picked up stitch, okay, then I'm going to put it on my left hand needle, okay. Now I'm going to knit those 2 stitches together, so that's the stitch that I've just pulled through plus the first stitch on my needle, and I'm going to knit 2 together. So I'm going to get a right slanted decrease, if you want to be technical about it. So I've knit 2 together. I just knit the middle stitch. Now I'm going to slip this one purlwise onto my right hand needle, and I'm going to do the same thing with the bottom right of my left hand square. And I'm going front to back. Again, I'm just going to go in here, and I'm going to put that on my needle. Now I'm not knitting that, I've picked that up, remember. I've just picked that up. So I've got an unknitted stitch here, and I've picked that one through. Now on this side, I'm going to put my left hand needle through the front loops of this, and I'm going to knit those 2 together,
So I get a left leaning decrease. It's essentially a slip, slip, knit on that one. Okay, now that all sounds very complicated. So that's the knit bit. Now we slide. Sorry. So we slide. So I was down here, because remember my yarn is on the left side now, and I slide that back to the tip of that needle. And we're going to do the same thing again. So I'm going to look for my V, or wherever I can sort of get in for my knitting there. So we're going to pick that one on. I do prefer to pick up, that's it. Okay, so I want to get my, now I'm going to give that a little pull. Again, this is where it's a bit fumble fingers to start off with, but we'll get there. I'm going to put that on my needle. Now, what you have to be careful of, if you pull it through like that, it's seated on the needle the wrong way. So all I'm going to do is make sure that's positioned so that that would be a knit stitch position. Okay, that way the left leg is facing this way, we want the right leg facing. So again, I'm going to knit those two together. That's my right leaning decrease. I knit the middle stitch, I get my last stitch slipped purlwise on my right needle, and now I'm going to find that where I need to go here. There we go. And I'm going to pull that through. Remember, I'm not knitting that, I'm just pulling that through. I'm picking up a stitch, left hand needle through those loops, and I'm basically knitting through the back. Okay, I'm gonna keep doing this, because the more we do it, the better you'll see it. Camera's getting annoyed with me because I'm moving about. Okay, so you can already see that starting to form. So that was down there, I'm going to slide that back up, and I give that a little pull. The more you pull that, the more you're going to get that rounded I-cord. You may want that, you may want it flatter. That's for you to decide. The principle is the same. So here we go again. And as you get up here, it gets easier. So I'm going to go in here. Can't see the light. Okay, I'm gonna go in there just for speed, because I want to get onto the stockinette stitch. Now, some of you may think, well, I don't need to put my finger there and pull that through. You may actually just be able to do it like this, whatever works for you. And I know some people like to sort of pull that over with their fingers. I just think it's easier to do it this way until you're really comfortable with what you're doing. So I'm front to back, I'm picking up another stitch, okay? And I'm going to give that a bit of tug, because I don't want this loose, I want it nice and snug. I'm going to make sure that goes on my needle the right way. Knit two together. I knit my middle stitch, I slip my last stitch purlwise, and now I'm going to find my V there. That was easier. And I'm going to place that on the needle. And then we do that slip, knit, knitting through the back of the loops essentially on that. Whoops, well, that's the idea. Oh gosh, there we go. I'm splitting the yarn as I'm doing that. Okay, so you can see that start to work. Going to keep doing it, because the more you do this, the easier it is. And I actually find doing it on the left side or this side easier than this side, but you may find it easier this side, that's fine. So I'm going to slide this back, give that a little pull. It does take a while to do this, but it's worth it. So this is where it starts getting easier if you've done stockinette stitch, because now you can really see those V's. And essentially I'm going to do one in each of the rows. Now we may not get to do that all tonight because there's 22 rows plus here, but once I get a few more, you'll really see. So that would be my next one. I'm going in through those V's of that edge of the knitting. I'm going to pull that through, make sure that's seated on my needle the right way. You always want to start off with 3 stitches on your needle and end up with that. That's why you're doing the decreases. You're knitting those two together. Remember, you're knitting that middle stitch, that purlwise, slip it purlwise on your needle, and then we're digging in for that V, picking that stitch up, needle in there, and again, you're getting to your own sort of rhythm with this. I'm just making sure I didn't split that, and I'm nearly through the back of the loops. So you can see that's already beginning to form. I'm just going to do another couple more, give that a little tug. Go in here. So I'm going up. See how it's easier when you're using stockinette stitch, because you can really see those, like you're picking up stitches around a collar or a neckline or something like that. You can really see that. But your blanket may be all sorts of stitches, so you just have to get in where you can. Okay, so I put my finger between that and there so I can sort of get that stitch on. Whatever works for you is fine, but when you do that, you need to, when you're doing it like I do, you just need to pull that, give it a tug so it's not too loose, because we are doing an I-cord join and we don't want it too sort of flappy and loose. That knit the middle stitch, purlwise for the last stitch on the needle, find that V, get that on, pick that stitch up, needle through the 2 loops, knit through the back. Okay, I'll do one more, slide that back up again, give it a tug. So the more you tug that, the more that's going to roll, and you may want that. Going in there to pick up my V, or go pick up my stitch through the V, I should say, putting my stitch on my needle, giving that a bit of a tug, knitting 2 together, knit the middle stitch, purlwise on my needle there, picking up front to back there, and through the front so I can knit through the back. So that is your I-cord join. What I do recommend is that every now and then, especially if you have a pattern or it's different, 2 different patterns, you just lay your work flat and check that you're getting, you're knitting it up evenly, okay? And if it helps, if it's a big square, you might want to put some clips in just to hold it together. So this is how your I-cord join will work. And obviously you would just weave that end in afterwards. So that's the basis of it. Now, if you often when you're knitting squares, you're joining an edge to maybe a cast on edge. So, some patterns you have that square on one side and you've knitted it this way, another pattern is that way. Now, if you get this sort of situation where you've actually got more cast on stitches than you have rows, well, you can tweak that. All you would need to do then is pick up here and go into it twice. So you're actually, whatever is the longer side, you're going to pick up twice in the same place. And you might need to do that a few times along the length of that just to even it out. But there's no magic to it in that sense. That's all you would do. That's all you need to do. Okay. What else do I need to tell you? Yeah, that's all you need to do. So when you get to the top, when you get to where you've finished, you would just cast off in the same, bind off in the same way. As long as you've got that stitch up here, as long as you've got that and your 3 stitches in the middle, you would do the same thing. You would knit the 2 together, knit the one in the middle, then you would bind off in the normal way. And again, just make sure you've got that one in and bind off, and then sew the ends in, exactly as I did on this one. Okay, that's all you do. So that is that I-cord join, which looks very intricate, and I know there's some photographs out there and some things on some of the sites that show you, but don't necessarily explain how to do it. I think this is one of these. It's much easier when you see it being done. There are other methods of doing it, but this is my favorite one. I think it gives a really interesting join and a really nice finish. And when it comes to, if you're going to say to me, well, how do I do it horizontally? Because now you've got this, how do you pick up? Well, what I would do is just pick up, go along here, then stop it, and then start again that side. And then you can just weave your ends in and make sure there's no hole there. You could go over the top, but it's going to get very bulky. But that's what I would do. I would do my join that way, stop it there, start it again there, and then just stitch those bits together. That's what I would do. So I will ask the camera to come back up to me. I hope that was interesting to you, and I do hope you will give that a try. It is a bit complicated at first, or it seems to be, because you've got lots of fingers and lots of needles going on at the same time, but it's really not so bad. And again, this will be uploaded to our Facebook page. It's also on Star Matters International website and on our playlist on YouTube. So there's plenty of opportunity to re-watch it. If you have any more questions, or if you have any questions at all on it, feel free to ask me in the thread below, and I promise to get back to you and give you any explanation that you wish. I'm here to help, and I hope I do. So don't forget, our friends at marymaxim.com offer a 20% discount off one item in your cart if you choose to buy anything from the website, providing you use the promo code Cheryl. Then you'll get your 20% off of one item. I've already said that this is uploaded to our Facebook page, our Knit Matters YouTube channel, and if you're searching for it, it's going to be Season 2, Episode 8. So thank you again so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed the I Called Join. Join me next Tuesday again at 7 p.m. Eastern. And until then, keep safe, keep calm, and keep knitting. Bye for now, everyone.